being on the creative team in the WWE, you were taking other people and somebody else's roster and somebody else's fucking concept and somebody else's style and trying to, and the people that somebody else wanted pushed. These are the books that one was expected to keep in the WWE. The town, the code for the WWE, you can't see this, only the IRS can see this. The seating capacity of the building, the card, the last date that WWE was in that town, the next date if there is one. Other pertinent information like ticket prices. The rent on Madison Square Garden was 85 grand and 15% of anything over 200 grand. So they walked out with 100, actually less than that after taxes. It was just a series of matches shot with 1 or 2 cameras, badly lit with no stories, and then we voiced it over after the fact. And it was rotten. If your top stars are hot and they're over, you can book chickens fucking, donkeys plucking, whatever underneath, it doesn't matter. If you're hot, you can't fuck it up. If you're cold, you almost can't resurrect it. I won't say he didn't draw, but he was horrible for business as far as doing business. Because how many times did he drop the thing once he won it? Did he lose his smile? Was he fucking upset about something? Was he cranky that week? Was his asshole bleeding? Was her asshole bleeding that week? Shawn, hi. Born again. Was not in favor the first time. You were always a prick to me. I just want to remind you of that. Fucking did the job for the little prick that he could beat like that. Because, you know, once again, Shawn had a problem. Shawn had an issue.
And Vince goes along with all this, why?
I don't fucking know. She leapfrogged ahead of herself and got political allies and suddenly became, not only was wrestling, but was wrestling men and beating men. Vince, you know, at his table by the pool one day said, well, put Heyman on the payroll for $1,000 a week. I feel bad because we've stolen some of his talent. But then Paul was still telling, hi, Paul. I'm not knocking you, just telling the truth. Paul was still telling his guys, no, they're the evil one. These CW guys thought, oh, these WWF guys are fat, old, lazy, making a lot of money and have shitty matches. And the fucking WWF guys thought these fucking ECW marks are a goddamn bunch of fucking morons that bash each other over the head with shit for real for no fucking money. Grab the crotch, point at your dick, chop the crotch, suck it, fuck you, piss off. Guys going out, they jacked off about the angles. They jacked off, they didn't take anything seriously. I know that's part of their appeal, but it also in the process buried a lot of the other talent, buried a lot of the issues. They were too worried about getting themselves over, which is the same thing that whole group's always been worried about. I wrote down every move that Kevin Nash did, every idiosyncrasy he did in the ring, and I got to 6, and that was with the hair flip. Whether you like Vince McMahon or not, Madison Square Garden was his building at the time, it was his father's building. He viewed that as his house, and they went out and took a shit on the business in Vince's fucking dining room, right on his table. Vince, in another life, if he could be reincarnated, wants to be Mr. fucking Olympia. And that's why he and his fucking son-in-law have bonded. This is Vince, and that's the son-in-law. So I'm in a production room. I called fucking hotel, the XL Inn, I think, at the airport or whatever. And I said, I'm asking about one of your guests from last night, Brian Pillman. Can you tell me what time he checked out? He said, hold on 1 second, please. He put me on hold. The one guy that's going to make $3 million a year is fucking mad at the guy that's going to make $2 million a year, and oh, woe is me, and what are we going to do about these horrible situations, and my asshole just bled for him, and every finish was talked about. Like, how can Brett go over? How can Shawn go over? Can there be a DQ? He's going to walk out and drop the belt. Everybody was shooting everything they had. That's why at one point I said, goddamn, I said, fucking book him with goddamn Shamrock. He'll drop the belt then. I told Vince, I said, and if what happens if fucking Shawn does try to cinch up on a small package, Brett will kick out at 2 3/4 and beat the piss out of Shawn right there on fucking television. The idea of a double cross is you want to get the result you want without one of the participants' knowledge, but without anybody else knowing that there's anything off fucking kilter. They didn't do that. Bret Hart never, and I love you, Bret, but you never called the newspapers and said, you know, all those titles that I won, I really didn't win them. You know, the people put me over. But you lose one for real, and you call up and say, I didn't really lose it. I love you, Cactus, but you were upset that a promoter would fuck one of the boys. That's like being upset that Jenna Jameson would take one up the ass. He would let the top guys get away with fucking murder politically, and I never got it. The year 1997 was not the record year for business. It was the year that set up the record year for business.